Alright, so in this video, I want to do some quick analysis on Dash. I'm going to be doing some macro technical analysis. Again, all these altcoins that I do videos on, I, for the most part, know nothing about fundamentally. I don't do any research on the fundamentals of these assets. I don't know what they do. And I also haven't done analysis on this asset really before, other than today. And for this asset, I actually want to start on the monthly time frame because there's something interesting with this monthly. So on Binance, this has been around since 2019. It had a bull run in 2021, and looking at recent price action, we can see there's potentially a bit of monthly market structure. You can kind of make this out to be a low, a lower high, and a lower low. And interestingly, this low right here, which would be the monthly lower low, actually came down and SFP'd the bear market low, or at least, the visible bear market low of 2020. I can check around some other exchanges, see if maybe there's some more data. Here it actually goes back to 2017, so that's very interesting. Yeah, I guess there's an all-time high from 2017 that we didn't hit in 2021. So that's a good bit of information. I'm actually going to mark out structure on this chart. So back in 2019, we did have a bullish transition, but honestly, it's pretty poor. And by that, I mean we had a massive wick, which kind of came down and closed right around where the lower high is. Let's see if it closed above it or not. It did close slightly above. All right, so you can call that a bullish break. Aside from that close, though, if you're staircasing, we never got a bullish break. And then we did close a monthly candle up here. That's pretty close to this wick, and it's also an aggressive break above this high. So, we had a bullish break, but, that bullish break was unable to put in new all-time highs, which is very interesting. And, in general, it kind of looks like a pretty poor break just with all the wicks. So that is a good bit of historical data. The last monthly break was a poor break, and it did not lead to a move to all-time highs. Not even close, actually. And then if we continue on, we basically go from all-time high down to this lower low that I pointed out, because over here we SFP'd the bear market low. So this is the correct low, the one I was looking at on Binance. We SFP'd that low, and so far we have continued structure. We put in a lower high and have come down to put in a lower low. And actually, on this exchange, we didn't. On Binance, we did. So if I go back to the Binance chart, we actually put in a lower low right here. So this wick did not go down as far on Binance. I guess on the other exchange, this wick came like all the way down to here, meaning we didn't put in a lower low. So based on the Binance chart, we would technically get a monthly bullish break above this point. But on the other chart, that is not the case. So that kind of throws a wrench in the, structure analysis, honestly. At least on the monthly chart. But let's go down to the weekly. And I guess on the other exchange, it would look like this. We'd have a massive wick here. And if that's the case, then structure on the weekly time frame would look like this with, lower high, lower low down here, and then we broke structure. And so far we could be putting in a higher low. That's what the structure would look like on the other exchange. Whereas on this exchange, we put in a lower low still, put in a higher high still, so we broke structure. But then we came down to take out the low anyway. But it was not really a great close below the low. We just barely broke structure here to the downside, but still that was, at least on Binance, a false break. Okay, and then we put in a lower high and another lower low. And so far, we have come up to test this lower high, the Binance lower high, but it was a poor break above it. We got a wick originally, closed as an SFP. We were unable to close above this wick, even though it closed slightly above the lower high, and then we wicked out the high once more before we fell back into the range. And let me see this chart again. Let me see if weekly structure is looking similar. So, I would still look at this weekly structure because you can look at this as structure within this larger structure. So I think this lower high is still important. We still put in a lower low here, and we still did not break this lower high. It's actually even more of a clear SFP on this exchange. With, all that in mind, I'd say bare minimum, I think I want to see a significant close above this wick right here before I even start looking at any kind of structure as being bullish, because as of right now, The only structure that is technically bullish is not even bullish on all exchanges. On the other exchange, we are technically in a weekly uptrend and we may be putting in a higher low, but on Binance, we are not. But if we close above this lower high like this, then number one, the Binance weekly structure flips to bullish. Number two, the other exchange, Polynex, whatever that is, and I could go through and look at other exchanges as well, but I'll just use two kind of to highlight this. On that exchange, if we do this, then there's a good chance that the weekly higher low is already in. Okay, so moving on from market structure, because that is just an absolute mess on this asset. Again, I think the main point to take away from this is we had a high time frame bullish break previously in the last bull run, but that failed to come even close to all-time highs. So that's kind of like an overall bearish thing. And again, I don't know what this does, but the fact that we weren't able to hit all-time highs in the 2021 bull market is not a good sign for me. But I would start feeling more short-term bullish about this if, number one, we're able to break weekly market structure, and also if we're able to get a convincing monthly break. The last monthly break was pretty poor. If we get a better monthly break this time, which, this monthly break is much lower than the previous one, like we can get a move just up to this area and close up here, and I'd say that's a pretty solid monthly break. Yeah, if we do that, then I would definitely be feeling more short-term bullish on this. But is a monthly bullish break going to produce all-time highs or even a move up to the 2021 high? I can't answer that. So now I want to talk about some other resistances that I'm looking at. I pulled a bunch of anchored VWAPs, and I've been using these a lot more because of Flop and Groper. If you want to learn more about anchored VWAPs and how to use them, check out Flop and Groper's channel on YouTube, and that is at Nick Cypher. I found that these anchored VWAPs have been really helpful, especially in the trending markets that we're in. So yeah, he has a lot of content on anchored VWAPs on his channel. But here I pulled some anchored VWAPs from some significant highs, the all-time, or what I thought was the all-time high, but is really the 2021 high, and also this significant high over here. So, we got some anchored VWAPs as resistance above us. One of them is lining up with the monthly lower high. So testing this monthly high would be testing the anchored VWAPs as well. So I would, preferably like to see, a move above these anchored VWAPs. By the time we get up there, they will probably move down a bit. So, maybe breaking above them and back testing them, that would be a pretty decent sign of, some bullishness. And looking more locally, I also pulled one from the monthly lower high. We just came up to test that for the second time. We originally found resistance, got a pretty sharp rejection from that VWAP. Now we're testing it again as we are trying to break weekly market structure, and so far failing to. So we're running into resistance. But if you look at where price has come down and bounced from, we bounced from the anchored VWAP of the all-time low. So potentially we're finding some support in a key area. Also, if you take a fixed range from pretty much the start of this range, we are bouncing from the point of control value area high area. You can pull this over because we kind of failed to break out of the range, so we're probably still trading in the range, and that doesn't change the pull. We're still bouncing from these key areas. And, I'd say in the short term, this is probably the most important support for us. If we fall below this, then we're, back to trading probably at the low end of the range. That's where I would look to next. Somewhere around the value area low, potentially lower for a new low. And could this area give a short-term bounce? Could this maybe be where we find support to come up and break structure? Potentially, but, I think that has a lot to do with what Bitcoin does. Bitcoin is showing some, potentially bearish signs, maybe pointing towards the fact that it might need a retracement and that the retracement may be coming soon. If Bitcoin starts to retrace, then I expect this thing would probably at least range and potentially retrace as well. It would be pretty shocking to see this asset, pump really well as Bitcoin is retracing on a higher time frame. But I would say, for the most part, it depends on what Bitcoin does. And really quickly, I will run through Market Cipher as well. So we can start on the monthly time frame here because we at least have some momentum waves. Momentum is, curving nicely to the upside, it seems. We pretty much just have two thick momentum waves down below the zero line. Right now, it seems like this one is curving to the upside. Looks like we may have had a slight bull div on the low, and we did. So, monthly bullish div, at least with momentum. And, this pretty much just tells me that momentum is super oversold. Does that mean that necessarily there's going to be buying interest coming in? Not necessarily, but it shows that there is potential for pretty big swings to the upside if momentum starts shifting to the upside significantly. So on the weekly time frame, I actually want to zoom in on this money flow. It's definitely trending to the upside. You can see a clear trend. We're putting in higher lows. Potentially right now it's coming down for another higher low. But it's not looking like the greatest trend. I mean, this curvature in money flow has been happening since 2022. But if it continues this trend of higher lows, then I would think that by the time it actually crosses over and we see that direction continue to the upside, maybe it will be pretty strong direction since it was very strong bearish direction while it was in the bear market. And we saw what looked like a pretty nice setup with an anchor wave here, a trigger wave here, money flow increasing, and momentum did get above the zero line. It got a pretty significant move to the upside, but it was unable to put in a higher high in momentum. Right now, it seems like it's clipping off. The VWAP is pointing to the downside, so it looks like this may print a red dot. So we didn't get great follow through from what I would call this nice anchor to trigger wave setup with money flow increasing. Not a great sign. It shows at least that the first attempt of like a bullish setup didn't really work out. But potentially we just see momentum come down. Maybe we put in another trigger wave and kind of continue that direction. And maybe by then money flow puts in a higher low. And I will also check out the daily time frame because there is potentially, a bit of a bullish setup happening here. So, overall, you can say the daily momentum has been on a steady uptrend since like back here. We kind of broke below the trend line, but overall, it's putting in higher lows. And money flow is also putting in higher lows. And, it seems like we may be printing a nice trigger wave right now with daily money flow pretty thick. Locally, it's kind of turning to the upside as well. And, we're seeing this setup as we are bouncing from this very key support. Now, again, I think this really depends on Bitcoin. I think even if there's a very bullish setup here, if Bitcoin continues to retrace, this setup will probably fail. So the fact that, I'd say overall things are not bullish on this asset yet, we haven't even convincingly broken weekly market structure. I'm not putting too much weight on this bullish setup. It's not something that I'm personally taking. But if it ends up playing out with some bullishness, then that could lead to at least the first thing I would like to see for me to start feeling more bullish on this asset, which would be a convincing close above this high. All right, well, that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, leaving a comment. All that helps to support the channel. And I will see you all in the next video.